Coming to you from the foothills of the Missouri Ozarks, on the fringes of Sea Model number 7, if you are listening to this, you are the resistance.
Okay, Paul Watson is our guest. If you were on the Drudge Report yesterday afternoon, you saw the big, huge headline. Occupy Wall Street protesters call for re-election of Obama. And George Soros, all the different organizations, Move On, he's given $5 million to, the Democratic Party affiliated adbusters who are openly anti-free market, they all admittedly started this Occupy Wall Street. Now you notice there's been 4 years of in the Fed demonstrations, and we get zero or close to zero media coverage. It doesn't matter if we have 1,000 people at some of these rallies in front of the Federal Reserve. The Army in plain clothes gets called out on us. That's been leaked. Because we're actually protesting the inner group that controls the issuance of currency and credit, that created the derivatives, that overthrows nations all over the world, that's sucking the euro and the people of Europe into a admitted dictatorship. And Bloomberg and CNBC are saying it's good to have a financial dictatorship. Ireland, their central bank head, said it's good to be, quote, ruled by foreign banks. And they've got Michael Moore at the Wall Street event. They've got Roseanne Barr, I've got her clip coming up, saying if the rich don't pay more taxes and give up their money, they're going to have their heads chopped off. Now, they don't mean the real ultra-rich like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers that are out there publicly funding all these rich. Or Warren Buffett, who's gotten hundreds of millions for his Berkshire Hathaway subsidiaries, Bank of America. He owns a big part of along with Wells Fargo. No, they openly want austerity, that is tax increases, to, quote, pay off the derivatives debts that Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. I mean, I can play the clips. We've written articles about it. I can play the clips over and over again of Glenn Beck on the Bill O'Reilly saying, I think we need a national sales tax. And Glenn Beck's like, I agree with you, but I think we need both VAT and sales. They got Herman Cain, former head of the Federal Reserve at Kansas City, running around saying the Federal Reserve is your friend. And Ron Paul's a nut. 6 megabanks have taken the country over. They've taken over our military. They've run up our bills. They're bankrupting us. And they publicly fund a bunch. And I've watched the speeches from L.A. to New York to Boston. At least the speeches the news is putting on, they're like, we want higher taxes and Obama to be elected. Well, sure enough, Paul Watson joins us. Obama machine prepares to hijack Occupy Wall Street. Yeah. Well, you don't really hijack something you kicked off. They know when there's about to be a rebellion. They know when folks are waking up. The Federal Reserve comes out last week and says they're surveilling all their opposition. They're watching all their opposition. They're tracking all their opposition. That's the real enemy. Not capitalism, not the free market. It's big mega banks that are exempt from taxes and issue the currency and credit, that write the federal regulations and have their people in every power position who've stolen $27 trillion in bailout money. And we've got all these college students who can't get jobs, can't pay off their college. Globalism, NAFTA has destroyed them, that both parties push through, move everything to China. And we're going to a Chinese model, where socialism and communism mix together at the bottom, where we're all dependent on the state and they've got bureaucrats over us, and then the elites sit back and are above the law. Where General Electric can operate its power plants, but nobody else can. Where if you're a donor to the inner party, you can keep your GM dealership, but if you aren't, you can't. Or you can get tens of billions of dollars in green energy credits and never even build a thing. And openly dance around and say it's a post-industrial America. Ha, ha, ha. If you're not part of the club, you're not operating a business. This is mafia government. And they've got a bunch of well-meaning, surly college kids who make me want to throw up with their ignorance. But so do the mainline Republicans running around telling me how Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck are going to save them. You know, Paul's written a lot of articles on this. I've played the clips. I could play you probably an hour straight of Glenn Beck and others promoting sales taxes and VAT to pay off what this country owes. We don't owe this stinking money. We're an engine of success. Our supposed debt the bankers have manipulated us into is $14 trillion. We gave the stinking bankers 16.6 secret and another 11 or so that they want that's public. 27 trillion. We haven't got numbers in 2 years. And these idiots are in the street saying, get the rich people. The ultra-mega world rulers literally have your tax money paid to them, you idiots. They hold the whole world hostage. They've screwed everything over. They're working with collectivists in China and everywhere else. And you're sitting there saying, put more cyanide in the water. All right, I'm going to go to Paul Watson, who's broken this down. But I'll tell you this. They're bringing a mixture of communist, socialist system to America, backed up with a police state grid. Conservatives will give up their rights in the name of fighting terror. Liberals will give it up in the name of socialism. And that's what the CFR head wrote years ago. Paul, you ought to republish that stuff where Richard N. Haas talks about it. They got it all figured out. And right when they know we're waking up to Wall Street and the incredible inequity, they say, Wall Street says, okay, there's taxes on us. And all these rich guys go, I'm exempt from taxes. That's not right. Well, you know what? I'm not exempt from taxes. You make $125,000 a year. When you talk about all the different write-offs they've gotten rid of, it's 45%, Papa Jack, that I pay. That's not counting all the other taxes. Trying to run this operation. And anybody who's had a business knows that. Except the globalists who are exempt. Now I'm going to go to Paul Watson now to break this down. Paul, I took 2 weeks to analyze this, to watch it. I knew Soros was involved, but I still knew the Fed was trying to get in there. We were trying to point out the real problem. Confirmed now that anybody talking about liberty or wearing an Obama Joker shirt is told, hit the door, hit the bricks, buddy, hit the street. They're now chop rich people's heads off. In capitalism, there is no doubt this is banker finance, French Revolution. This is not 1776. This is the opposite, my friend. And that's why I'm making the big announcement. And folks, if you want to beat the communists that are banker run, you better go to every Federal Reserve station this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And don't wait for orders from headquarters. In the Fed up in Dallas, great people. Just be there 6 o'clock Friday. In the Fed, Houston, be there in Houston, high noon, Saturday. 10 a.m. Sunday at the Federal Reserve in San Antonio. Or have it whenever you want. Just be there. I'll promote it. Email us the events. We need nationwide to call the media, local media, make them cover it. Talk radio. This is who's doing it. This is who's cheating it. This is who teams up with the government. This is the problem. Paul Watson, I'm telling you, it really hit me. This is it. But when it really happens, you're dumbfounded for a moment. This is the bankers trying to trigger, like judo, and use all the anger we're throwing at them and turn it around and bring in total collectivism to fully wipe out their competition and fully get us dependent. I mean, they're making their big move. Worldwide revolution. The mainstream horror media is calling this American Revolution. They're dubbing it, saying it's great. That's your big telltale sign. Why demonizing in the Fed and sicking secret police on us. I mean, it's on, Watson. It's on.
Well, Alex, the big dirty secret behind this Occupy Wall Street event, which is not to say that there are a lot of well-meaning people involved in it, but once again they've been conned, is the fact that the Occupy Wall Street tax proposal, the one that they're all out in the street advocating, is backed by Wall Street itself. And you can go on the Occupy Wall Street official website, what they're calling the official website, and one of their demands is for the Obama administration through Congress to, quote, pass the Buffett rule on fair taxation so the rich pay their fair share. And that demand is posted on their own website. The only problem with that is the Buffett tax rule is the one that the Obama administration itself bought and paid for by Wall Street. 2008 Obama campaign, Goldman Sachs over $1 million donation, JP Morgan over $800,000. Again in 2012, Obama's campaign is even more reliant on Wall Street funding. Of course, his entire cabinet is made up largely of people who made their living, made their reputation on the back of Wall Street. The Obama administration completely Wall Street owned. And what do we read out of Bloomberg News just a couple of days ago? Quote, no differences exist between the Obama administration and billionaire investor Warren Buffett on the principles of a White House tax proposal that bears his name. Jay Carney, President Barack Obama's spokesman, told Bloomberg just a couple of days ago. So we've got this so-called fair tax proposal being promoted by Warren Buffett and the Obama administration, which is completely bought and paid for by Wall Street. So why is it also being advocated by so-called anti-Wall Street protesters?
Well, that's the incredible brazenness of the chutzpah, or just the bravado, the hubris, where the mega banks, the same ones that have hijacked the U.S., are openly in Europe saying democracy's wrong in Germany. We're going to get rid of even more of the pension funds that the Germans have been forced to pay into. We're going to slash the social safety net, which they paid into. Socialism, they took their money, and it's got to all go to the bankers to, quote, prop up the too big to fail. You've got to pull up the BBC. Remember 6 months ago, Paul, where it was a headline, head of Irish Central Bank says it's good Ireland now run by foreign banks. And they went overnight from being the fastest growing, best position, lowest debt to, oh, you signed on to the euro, you're bankrupt now. You just signed on to our derivatives. I mean, Iceland is the only country to effectively beat it. So far, and the fight's still on. I saw it in the news today. The Icelanders figured it out and said, this debt isn't ours, and forced an audit and found out that 92% wasn't their debt. And they said, go ahead and sue us, British Crown. Go ahead and sue us, Bank of England. Go ahead and sue us, EU. Your bankers owe this money. We're going to arrest the banker heads, the finance minister. The finance minister left the country. It's the same thing, 90+% of the Irish. The money's not owed by them or the government. 90+% here. 90+%. It's the same actuary. And it's so naked that they're on, I mean, when you see ABC News, Time Magazine, Newsweek, Warren Buffett on every channel, every week, saying it's not right that I don't pay any taxes. We need to pass my rule that raises it on people making $125,000 a year. And then these hippies send me emails going, if you think middle class is $125,000, you're crazy. We need to take their money. You idiots. You can take all the domestic rich people's money in the U.S. It would amount to $2 trillion. It wouldn't run the country for one stinking year. And then all the wealth's gone. The people that come to your hotels, that go to your restaurants, that go to your golf courses, that get their nails done. I mean, you don't understand the globalists do. They want a post-industrial, post-consumerist world. Is the consumer thing wrong? Has it gone too far? Yeah, but that's not freedom. That's just people getting decadent on the cheap credit of the beginning of the Ponzi scheme 12 years ago when they sucked us into it, and the globalists using Madison Avenue to get us to sell out for baubles. But then, it isn't like communism is some new wonderful thing. We need to get back to self-sufficiency, local sustainability, true free market, true decision-making. And you notice, under Obama, raiding the Amish, raiding people selling tomatoes, raiding people with gardens, it's on. Agenda 21, global corporate domination, shutting down farms and ranches. I mean, Paul, the magnitude, and I'm an idiot. You know, 2 weeks ago, I knew Soros was involved. I went and looked it up. I watched the groups leading it with their Democrat mindless chants, the vapid eyes, like, it's time to take the money from the rich, behead them, the one percenters. I knew in the Fed was there trying to vibe, hey, it's the Federal Reserve, it's not capitalism, it's bad. But you watch CNN, MSNBC, Paul, it's all capitalism did this, capitalism did this, capitalism. No, we got away from capitalism more and more in 1913. We have a mega private central bank running things. It's in control. It's robbing and looting everything openly. I mean, the Federal Reserve, 6 months ago, came out and said, the CFR came out and recommended a VAT and a sales tax and a carbon tax to pay our debt to them. And then they got a gaggle of idiots in the streets, and then they sent me emails lecturing me how I work for Wall Street. I don't own one stinking stock. I don't have any Wall Street sponsors. I'm 100% sponsored by my listeners. I'm against tyranny. I'm against unfair monopoly groups, mafias running our world, and you stupid so-called liberals make me want to throw up your insane ignorance, and you moron mainline Republicans, you make me want to vomit on you as well. Because when all of your cheap whores, all of them, every stinking one of them is pushing new taxes to pay off what we owe. And I'm sorry, Paul, but you've got all the links in your articles where the whole thing is the Warren Buffett, Bill Gates' dad is in this 1% movie, a film by Jamie Johnson, where the rich kid comes out against the corruption of the elite, and he blames free market for it. No, most of these families made their money in sweetheart deals with government contracts with my tax money. This isn't some defector from the ultra-rich. This is a top-level ultra-rich person doing what Granddaddy did, learning how to con the general public into going into the rat's nest, thinking they're getting out of it. Go ahead, Paul.
Here's a quote, Alex, from the Wall Street Journal. Quote, roughly 90% of the tax filers who would pay more under Mr. Obama's plan, this is the plan being advocated by Occupy Wall Street and Warren Buffett, on millionaires, and 99.99% on billionaires. So again, it's the middle class. It's not Warren Buffett or Wall Street corporations that are going to be hurt most by this Occupy Wall Street solution that they're calling for. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway still owes taxes from 10 years ago. You know, he's the ultimate Wall Street insider, third richest man on the planet. Buffett and most of the top corporations pay virtually no income tax, not because of some law that hasn't passed that's going to decimate the middle class, but because they park their wealth in offshore tax havens. That's why they get to avoid the income tax. So all this crap about 1% is absolute nonsense. This is going to decimate the middle class. And that's
his own Wells Fargo caught laundering $376 billion in narcotics money in 2 years alone. They paid a $111 million fine on it. That was something like 0.3%. When you rob a bank and pay a $3,000 fine, it is completely asinine. And Paul, we are going up against the Federal Reserve. We're actually going up against a group that came out last week and said they're surveilling the American people. We're actually going up against a group that is completely ruthless and actually hijacked this nation and killed Kennedy when he tried to stop them. If people want to go after the real corporate fascists, the monopoly men, this is it, Paul. This is it. And we're going straight into the belly of the beast, and it's time to have an Occupy the Federal Reserve. What do you think of that?
Well, we're not just cynically dismissing all the Occupy Wall Street people and saying, oh, let's just do nothing. We're offering a real alternative solution that actually targets the focus of the problem. I mean, we had people back in August with the London riots saying we were bad for not supporting a group of thugs, you know, stealing trainers from JD.
And that's meant to make protesters look bad. Stay there, absolutely. The global bankers are hijacking a movement against the bankers so they're normal suspects, a bunch of well-meaning commies.